All right, let me introduce myself. Haven't gotten to do that yet. As you can see from the picture in the syllabus, I'm not Korean or Chinese, but my last name is Lee. No, I wasn't adopted or anything like that. Nothing like that. A lot of Koreans don't realize that Lee is also an Old English word. It's like the Korean name Park. In English, you write it P-A-R-K, like the English word park. Well, Lee is an English word too. Now, it's not very common in modern English. It's Old English. So I'm from the U.S. and my ancestors came from England and Scotland to the U.S. in the 1700s, so a few hundred years ago. So Lee is it's actually more common as a first name or last name in England or in the UK. In American English, it's more often a last name, occasionally a first name. I actually had a childhood friend named Lee, first name. It's not that common though. It's an old English word. Now in Old English it doesn't have this meaning anymore, but in Old English it had two meanings. One of the meanings is gone. I think originally the meaning was a meadow, like a field where your sheep and cows are grazing and eating grass. A field or meadow, or a clearing in a forest. And the other meaning is wind protected side, particularly a mountain. So on one side of the mountain you have the side where the wind is blowing, that's the windy side. The other side where the wind is not blowing, it's protected from the wind, that's the lee side. That's kind of an old word you still see occasionally today. Not often, but occasionally, especially maybe some older English British poetry. So lee is side of a mountain where the wind doesn't blow, the wind protected side. This can also refer to ships, and they might use this today in the Navy. On one side of the ship is where the wind blows, and the other side of the ship there's no wind blowing. It's a wind free or wind protected side of the ship or boat. That's the lee side of a boat or lee side of a mountain. This word is not used much in normal English, maybe in British poetry, older British poetry. Maybe if you're in the Navy or if you're a professional mountain hiker, you might use this word. Otherwise, it's not common today, but you do see it in a few other expressions. Windward, if something is facing the wind, it's windward. And if something is facing away from the wind, it's leeward. That's maybe a bit more common in certain special contexts. It's maybe most common in the word leeway. It means flexibility. Give me some leeway, give me some flexibility. And that's where you see the word lee in modern English more often. Flexibility, leeway. Like in your minor assignments in this class, I tend to give leeway on the quality and performance as long as you are making effort to talk in English in front of the camera or in class. So a bit about myself. I was born in Texas. You probably cannot tell it from my accent. I lost my accent, my dialect, the Saturi. I can maybe fake it if I really need to, but it's just not natural for me to speak in Texas dialect. While I was there, I came to dislike Texas. I mean, now I appreciate it. I appreciate certain things about the culture in its history, but at the time there are certain things I didn't like. The very dominant religion, which is football, American football, and it was extremely conservative. I didn't like the political environment, the extreme political and religious environment. So I moved away, and also I started hanging out with foreign students while I was there, and that caused me to moderate my accent, but especially while I was still there in high school and even middle school, I started watching British TV shows, and I still do. That affected me. But mainly I moved to the Midwestern US, and I went to college at Purdue University, and I adopted a Midwest general American accent, which is pretty much what I speak today. Unless I was maybe watching a British show the night before, then I might slip into sort of a fake British accent a little bit. Anyway, I went to Purdue, majored in German, minored in English, and I was a humanities person then. As far as German and English, I was mainly studying linguistics just so I could get into graduate school. So graduate school in American English or postgraduate school in British English, that's where you do a master's, a saksa, or PhD, baksa. So I went to the University of Illinois for graduate school. I did a master's in linguistics and a second master's in teaching English, and then a PhD in educational psychology. My educational psychology was focused on language psychology and linguistics. So while I was there, I got married to a Korean woman, and then as I was finishing my PhD, I was applying for jobs, and I happened to get a job in Korea. Out of all the places I applied for, cool. So I came here in 2008. I first started at Hanyang University. Then I moved to Korea University, Kodae. There I first worked as an educational consultant, and then I moved to the foreign language department there, teaching freshman English. And then I came here last spring for a more permanent job where I can do research. And I really like Busan. I like the beaches and the hills and mountains and the relative clean air. I think it's a better place for me to live and for my family. My son loves it. My wife and son are going to come down here and join me pretty soon. And so sometimes I might be busy this month with family and moving stuff. Oops. Okay. My son is very active, and so sometimes I'll be spending time with him, trying to keep him busy and occupied. Be fun. What else? Hobbies? I don't have many hobbies. I sometimes watch sci-fi, science fiction TV shows. In Korean you say SF, we say sci-fi, science fiction TV shows and movies, Star Trek, Doctor Who, and such. Doctor Who's kind of pretty good. Last season was so-so, but anyway, don't have too many hobbies. Don't have much time. If I can, I like to read, like to travel, but well, traveling is kind of not possible nowadays with coronavirus. Lovely. But anyway, that's me basically. You can ask me more questions about myself later on. The next session we'll talk a little bit about some software tech tips, and then prepare for and then later on we'll talk about language learning. Okay, a few tech tips. So in the book, after the syllabus and intro material, there are a few tips on general resources. Assignments for, not so much for my class, but for other classes. If you have to write something, there's some options here besides Microsoft Word for writing documents, but also for presentations. For the midterm and final, not necessarily going to require PowerPoint, but I might just require some kind of presentation medium in general, especially for the final. Maybe for the midterm you don't need to use PowerPoint or any other software. For the final, definitely you're going to need to use either PowerPoint or Prezi or some other alternative. And there's some other alternatives. If you don't know Prezi, it's kind of more of an interactive web-based alternative to PowerPoint. You have a lot more freedom and flexibility. You might have seen some Prezi presentations where kind of things like zoom in and out and they kind of tilt around. Of course, you don't want to overdo that. You don't want to make your audience sick from all the tilting and what we call panning. Panning is where the camera kind of zooms into something or zooms out and the view changes. It's what we call it. So panning and zooming. You don't want to overdo that. But there's some other alternatives too. If you have Gmail, you have Google Docs, so there's a free word processor, Google Doc Writer, and the presentation software, which is free. It's very simple, but it works, I guess. Some of the slides I do for my videos, like some of the black slides you've seen, it's from Google Docs, the Google presentation software. There's also LibreOffice. This is what I use for making my course booklets and stuff, and that's a free office suite. It can save in the Microsoft format, or there might be a few little bugs in the conversion, but it works pretty well. It has its own format too, and it has a free PDF converter. Email here, file backup. College students, I highly recommend, in fact I strongly urge you to use Dropbox or maybe the Google Drive to back up all of your important documents. So you can either get the Google Drive program, and I think it gives you 5 free gigabytes, and then do all of your work in the Google Drive on your computer hard drive, and it backs up to the Google Drive. Or I find Dropbox easier. You get 2 free gigabytes. 2 gigabytes are free, or you can pay for a full version. Because I have a lot of files, and for research I actually pay for the full 2 terabytes option. It's worth it. But the free option, definitely at least get Dropbox. And then in the Dropbox folder on your computer, that's it's where you save all of your documents, your school documents, your work stuff for your work, your office, when you're working someday. Use Dropbox or something to back up your documents. Hard drives fail, computers fail. You don't want to lose your documents, especially during the semester. That can be awful. One time, a sad story, a student gave me like an important document so I could write a reference letter for him, and of course I didn't save it, the printout copy he gave me, but later he was desperately asking me, do you still have that hard copy? I lost my computer drive, crashed. It was an Apple computer, Macintosh, and those can crash too, definitely. Don't ever depend on your computers. They can crash. A hard drive can crash, or an SSD can go bad. Anything in a computer can go bad. You can lose your data. Use Dropbox. It's really important if you're a college student, if you're working in an office job, and if you're ever saving anything on your own computer or even your office computer. Use Dropbox or something like that to save important documents. Browsers, of course, you have to use Internet Explorer for some university stuff, which is unfortunate because that is the world's oldest existing browser, and it's the worst one in the world. It's slow, it has security problems, and Microsoft is actually going to stop supporting it next year. They're basically going to discontinue it. Chrome and Firefox are free. If you don't know Firefox, Chrome is based on Firefox, and Chrome and Firefox are free. They're more stable, faster, secure, and you can also install extra add-ons or tools like language translation apps, dictionary apps to your browser, PDF apps, screenshot apps, all kinds of stuff you can install to make your life easier. If you know Microsoft Edge, Edge is just Microsoft took Chrome and they rebranded and repackaged it as Edge because Microsoft doesn't know how to come up with any good products. They never have, except for maybe Excel. I don't use Microsoft products. If you take my writing class, I will be telling you don't send me things that can only be opened in Windows. Anyway, there's some more about browsers here, some reference materials, some online dictionaries. It will be helpful to know a couple of online dictionaries in English. Thesaurus, it's a dictionary of synonyms or related similar words. Definitely need to use that. I will also mention, well, there's the English Wiki, which is my website, and then the Urban Dictionary. If you want to look up slang terms, you hear a new word in a pop song and it's not in the dictionary or not with any meaning that makes sense. maybe slang or colloquial English. Go to Urban Dictionary. You hear a bad word. What does that mean? Actually, you should learn bad words. And I know probably most of you don't want to use bad words, which is why you should learn the bad words so that you don't accidentally say a bad word. When I learn a language, I try to learn the bad words first so I don't make a mistake and actually don't, oh, I didn't mean to call you that, I'm sorry. So use Urban Dictionary to learn bad words too, and it's good, and especially if you're more conservative, that's good. Learn the bad words so you don't make a mistake with those words. It's easy to make a mistake like that. So those are some tips. If you have any questions about that and other stuff, ask me. Of course, later on, as we head more into the movie and film unit, I'll be explaining more about video technology, and there'll be some kind of assignments related to that. You'll learn, I'm not actually going to ask you to make a movie, but you're going to learn at least some very basics about video production and how movies are made, especially low budget movies or YouTube videos. Because I've at least done YouTube videos myself, and it's a good practical skill, good hobby. So that's it for now. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.